Pregnancy is a natural process. So if it's not happening or if it's not sticking, something is missing. After having a family member go through infertility and experiencing a miscarriage myself, I realized how little support and education women have around infertility. I want to change that. I'm Dr. Jane Levesque. I'm a naturopathic doctor and a natural fertility expert. Tune in every Tuesday at 9 a.m. for insightful case studies, expert interviews, and practical tips on how you can optimize fertility naturally. If you've been struggling with infertility, pregnancy loss, women's health issues, or you just want to be proactive and prepare yourself for the next big chapter in your life, this show is for you. All right, you guys, I'm going to attempt to answer the million-dollar question today is on how long is this going to take? How long until I get to be pregnant? How long until I get to hold my baby? And I wish I had a magic crystal ball that told me exactly what your fertility journey is going to look like and when you're going to get pregnant, and more importantly, when you're going to meet your baby. I'm going to attempt to answer this question today and help you understand how I approach the different cases and what really helps my couples stay on track, and when to know maybe when it's time to take a break, because that is a realistic thing. You might need to take a break. This is a really difficult journey. There's a lot of different moving pieces and a lot of different components. So taking a break might be something that you need. But, let's answer the big question of how long it's going to take. There's a lot of frustration, obviously, in the fertility space. You feel like you've put in a lot of work. You feel like you're doing everything and anything, and you're frustrated because it doesn't seem like either some of your stubborn symptoms are not getting better or you're just not getting pregnant. Obviously, that's the main frustration. And the mistake that I see really frequently is that we just give up. We keep blaming ourselves. We don't take a break, and we just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and expect different results, right? The definition of insanity. And really, the big one is just you're stopping. You're saying, I guess this isn't for me. Where in reality, there's still a fire in you, deep down in your soul, in your bones. You believe that this is possible for you, but you just keep spinning your wheels and it seems like you can't get anywhere. So what I want for you guys is I want you to make your fertility journey about your healing journey. And this is something that I talk to my patients when I'm onboarding them right from the get-go. And I do bring on the male partner right away. Even if you think that your male partner's sperm is perfect and it is all your fault and there's nothing that he needs to do to improve his fertility, I promise you that this is a two-person adventure, and I need both of you on this adventure because it is going to be a journey and there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, and we need to have you together. Even if the sperm is good, I guarantee you that there's something that your partner can do to improve his health. But more importantly, how does he need to support you through this journey as you go, through some of the ups and downs? So I'm going to give you some nuggets, kind of 5 of them, to reframe and help you answer the question of how long is this going to take. Now, I try to keep track of my stats as much as I can. And, genuinely people, when they're working with me, like 75% of my patients will get pregnant within 6 to 12 months of working with me. Now, the more difficult cases that I'm getting, when I first started practicing, my people would be struggling with infertility for 1 to 2 years, whereas now I'm getting a lot more cases of people who have been struggling for 4, 5, 10 years. And they are really looking just to heal at this point and to have more peace, in their journey. And so if you've been struggling with infertility for, 5 years versus 2 years, is this going to be a 6-month journey or a year journey? Again, I don't know because each couple faces their unique challenges, but it also, what I'm seeing is there is taking a bit longer. So it's not just the 12-month mark. Now we're looking closer at the 18-month mark and maybe even 2 years, depending on the severity of the condition that you have and also how quickly you're able to go. There's a lot to implement. There is always something to do. And sometimes you just need to take a break, which I will talk about when to know it's time to do that. But here's a couple reframes to help you make your fertility journey about your healing journey. So that's the first thing that I really drill into my patients is we're going to focus on healing you physically, mentally, emotionally. And as a couple, coming together and learning and understanding how to support one another, making sure that you are really aligned with your values and your goals. I can't tell you how many times there is a disconnect between the couple and their values and their goals. And that actually creates a lot of tension, not just for you, but in your healing journey. You're not able to support one another because there's bickering, there's conflict, and you don't really know how to resolve it. So if I can get you and your partner to make sure that you're aligned on your goals, and that this fertility journey is going to be about healing, and it's going to be about you both becoming the best versions of yourself. And just know that there's probably things that both of you are going to have to work on. I can't tell you how many of my male partners said, I'm fertile myrtle and I don't have any issues. And then turns out when we run lab work, look at that. Your blood sugar is dysregulated. Your liver enzymes are out of control. Your white blood cells are really low, which is usually a sign of a chronic infection, especially Lyme, depending on which white blood cell. So the males are often shocked because they're like, but I feel fine. And in reality, you might feel fine. You just might not really know what feeling good is. And so fine is a really low standard. And I like to set a higher standard for my couples. I want you to be the best version of yourself because that is what is required to have a really good experience through your pregnancy and postpartum and to really enjoy the fruits of your labor, AKA your baby. And I can speak from my personal experience and of course through some of my clients and even friends and acquaintances that shared their journey. Your pregnancy is not what you think it's going to be. And having a child is not this magical, joyous experience unless there's a lot of intention behind it. I see so many couples having babies only to then feel super empty and frustrated and even more disconnected, realizing how much work it is. And it will really magnify all of the issues that you have. So if you're not aligned on your goals and your values now, when you're deprived of sleep, when you've skipped meals, when you have to take care of a tiny human that needs you 24/7, those things are not going to get better. Your values are not all of a sudden going to really come out and solidify. It's going to challenge you guys even more. And so I want to address that now instead of you having to address that once you already have the baby, because it doesn't mean that you can't have a baby before that. But like I said, I'm not just about helping you get pregnant. I want to see you build the generational health. And that means you being and becoming the best version of yourself. And truthfully, there's so many things that we could always be doing. And it's not about doing everything, right? It's not about doing everything. It is about prioritizing. So the first reframe is that your fertility journey needs to be about your healing journey. And so if you feel like you're getting worse on your fertility journey, meaning you're gaining weight, you're stressing out, your mental and emotional health is terrible. So now you need to be medicated. Your hormones are getting worse. You're moving in the wrong direction. And we just need to put the brakes on and recognize, hey, what's going on here? What am I missing? And how do I regain energy, vitality, rebalance my hormones? Because at the end of the day, the first place that the baby will grow is you. And so if you're feeling really overwhelmed, really emptied, that your hormones in your body, your physical body, your health is just deteriorating, we need to stop. We're moving in the wrong direction. And I see this a lot in my patients who have done multiple rounds of IVF. And what I say is, you got to put the brakes on instead of just numbing yourself and hoping that's the way that you're going to get to meet your baby, because you are the first place that the baby will grow. And I promise you, your eggs are not spoiling. You need to learn how to take care of yourself. And we can absolutely reverse some of the aging in the ovaries that can happen with high toxicity, poor quality diet, poor sleep, high stress. So it's not just about how old you are. It's very much about how much you're taking care of yourself. So that brings me to my next point. Your healing journey never really ends. It doesn't end. And I know that might sound frustrating, but for some people, I always draw this staircase out for my patients when I first take them on, because the steps that you need to take at the beginning of your journey is going to be very different for the steps that you're going to take 10 steps down the journey. And I see people working on the wrong things. We're working on the right things at the wrong time, which is essentially working on the wrong thing. And so they feel frustrated because they're not really moving forward. And sometimes they're moving forward, but the change is so subtle, they don't think that they're moving forward. And so they just give up. It's like, well, what are you giving up on? If your healing journey is just a commitment to yourself, to work on yourself and to continue to improve yourself, your physical health, your mental and emotional health, your spiritual health, there isn't really an end. But at which point in your journey are you going to be able to get pregnant? Again, this is a really difficult question because I think that everybody, your soul has a curriculum that it's going through in this life. And there's lessons that we all have to learn. And I don't know why you have certain lessons to learn and why I have certain lessons to learn, but we're just going to learn all of them. And we're going to see that life is just school and we're constantly learning. And for some people, like I said, it's just cleaning up their diet, cleaning up their environment, and coming on the same page with their partner. While for others, it's a really big spiritual journey and they've had some more damage done. Like I've had cases with either premature ovarian failure or endometriosis and adenomyosis with issues that have been passed on from past generations, like really high toxic loads of really poisonous chemicals that we see in studies and in research, how they impact the reproductive system and how they screw up our hormones and liver function and gut function. And so genuinely, it might just take some time to get that toxic load out and to revamp the function of the ovaries, the function of the uterus, to get out some of these, parasites and other toxins and pathogens that have just made it home, right? They've just come into our bodies and they're really comfortable and they love it there. And so they're causing a lot of issues. But the point is that our healing journey doesn't really stop. It does change and it does evolve. And the goal is to learn quicker. If the same thing keeps happening over and over and over again, and you don't learn from it, like you keep stepping on the same rake, you have to own that. That's the easiest way for me to say that. And my naturopath, the one that like changed my life, Dr. Janab, when I was going through school, the first thing he asked me is like, what are the patterns that you feel like you're stuck in? And at that time, I knew exactly what my patterns were. And it was around dating. I couldn't find a partner. I either had guys who would reject me and wouldn't want to go out on a date with me at all, which was terrible, or guys that I just had wanted nothing to do with. And it was frustrating for me because it was literally years of that, of repeating these patterns of feeling unwanted, rejected, or like, hey, I don't want anything to do with this guy. And, do I have to settle? And it wasn't until I realized that I was the one that was reliving that pattern. And maybe there was something in my subconscious that I had to deal with that was attracting all of these quote unquote wrong men into my life. It wasn't until I started to do more mental and emotional work, sitting with my counselor, digging in and understanding what happened in my childhood. What were the emotions that I was terrified of feeling, which for me was loneliness. It was terrible. I hated feeling lonely. It was, I had a pit in my throat and a pit in my stomach and my heart would race. And it was just learning how to actually sit with those emotions that released a lot of pressure from myself and really allowed me to pick out certain signals in the pattern that of the guys that I was meeting. So if the guy didn't really pay attention to me, or if he didn't text me back right away, I knew that he wasn't interested. So I didn't try to make up excuses for him and say, oh, it's because he had a thing at work or he was running late for the gym. I started to watch actions instead of just listening to what the person would say and do. And so that was just my own personal experience that really helped shift me into not feeling the same pattern over and over again. And so I now believe that every pattern that happens to us, if history continues to repeat itself over and over and over again, there's a lesson for us to learn. And it could be a really subtle lesson, or it could be a really big lesson. And it could be a lesson of things that are happening with your partner. It could be your work. It could be with your physical body. But there is a lesson to learn. And the more we can accept that and realize that my body and I are on the same team. We're just trying to heal, and I'm going to listen to it because it's wise. Why would I have issues with my menstrual cycle? Why would I have acne? Why would I have digestive issues or breast tenderness or estrogen dominance, whatever the label that you have been given? Why do I have that? Why is my body doing that? And giving yourself the space to actually listen to some of the possible answers that might come up. Because sometimes it's things that we're not ready to admit to ourselves. Like I wasn't ready to admit myself that I was extremely lonely and I was afraid of dying alone. It sounded silly to say it out loud, but once I said it out loud, it was a big relief. I could finally breathe and say, oh man, maybe that is silly, but in reality, I still am feeling this. So let's get to the root cause here. So that your journey doesn't end. That's my second point. The third point is that this journey is really about you. Even having a baby, wanting to experience a life growing inside of you and bringing that life into the world is still very much about you. Sometimes we're focusing so much on like, well, if I have the baby, then I'll be fine. Where in reality, what I say to my women all the time, you are the first place that the baby will grow. And a lot of women have self-worth issues and in the infertility space. And I mean, including myself, I can't tell you how many times I had the imposter syndrome or felt like I wasn't worth it. It's if we have a hard time spending time, money, energy, resources on ourselves because we don't think that we are worth it, I want you to flip that and help you understand that this whole life is about you. The whole thing is about you. When I realized that for myself, I stopped. And for me, it was when I had really bad IBS. It was at a point where I knew exactly where all the bathrooms were. I couldn't leave the house without knowing where the bathrooms were. And it really impacted the quality of my life, how much I could go out, where I could go out. If there was a hike that I was going with friends and there was no bathrooms, there was a lot of times where I would say no and decline. So it was impacting my social life, which then made it even harder to find a partner, even though I loved going hiking. So there was all of these pieces that I didn't realize were attaching to me. And I came to this realization, if I don't fix this, if I don't invest time, energy, and money into fixing this, then I will never be able to enjoy life. And even though I was a student and I was living on student loans, I set out to go find a naturopath that somebody has to help me because I realized that I couldn't do it on my own because it was already years of me trying to figure it out. And obviously I didn't get there. So don't be afraid to admit to yourself, number one, when you need help. And number two, when it's time to invest time, energy, and money. And don't be afraid in what it's going to take. I don't think failure is really, I don't want to say an option. You might feel like you failed, but in reality, it's never a failure to invest into yourself and to do, because you're going to learn something from each experience. Like it took me 5 naturopaths before I found the one that truly healed me, the one that asked me the difficult questions, that one that ran the lab work, the one that was present for me and got to know me as a person. That wasn't my first naturopath. And that wasn't even my second or my third. And by the time I found that, I think it was my 5th naturopath, it's because I was able to recognize and appreciate what he was asking me because no one else has ever asked me those questions. And so what I say is listen to how your practitioners are talking and what they're saying. I have many of you sending me a message and be like, oh, they're just telling me that I need to rest more and I need to eat. And that might be true for a certain portion of your journey, but it's probably not enough. And so it's okay to recognize when it's time to move on to another practitioner. But I think it's not really an option to say, oh, I guess I'm just broken and it's not meant to be. And I've already spent this much money on it. How much am I supposed to spend? Honestly, I don't know. I spend an insane amount of money on my health all the time, working with different practitioners, taking different supplements. And I don't regret it because I think, and I don't hesitate to do it because I think how I feel is going to be a reflection of my entire life. It's going to be a reflection of how present I can be with my kids. It's going to be a reflection of how present I can be with my husband. It's a reflection of how present I can be with my patients and therefore how well my business is doing and how many people I can reach and I can actually help. So like I said, when I went through IBS and I fixed my IBS and now all of a sudden I was able to be present and I didn't have to worry about social events or gatherings. And then I actually was able to find my partner. To me, that return of investment was completely worth it. It was completely worth it, So even though at the time that I was investing, I was like on student loans, I literally was living in debt. And I still said to myself that I just got to do this because there's no way I can continue to live like this. / there's no way I could call myself a naturopath knowing that I have these terrible issues. Just like I couldn't call myself a personal trainer who helps people with weight loss when I struggled with 25 pounds of extra weight. I knew that, I needed help. And it wasn't until I got the right help that now I can walk people through those journeys as well, because I've been through it. So this journey is about you. There's so many different angles. There's physical, there's mental, there's emotional, there's spiritual. And it's really just prioritizing which aspect you need to work on. Because sometimes you really just need to focus on the physical body. We need to clean up our environment. We need to learn and understand how our gut works, our liver works, our hormones work. But then there's also the mental and emotional component. What is the pattern I'm feeling? What is my subconscious trying to tell me? Why am I continuing to experience the same issue over and over again? And usually, like I said, there is something deeper down that our body's trying to tell us that we need to work on and release. The fourth point, so the first one is fertility is your healing journey. The second point, that it doesn't end. So we have to stop looking at the end point. And the third is that this journey is about you. Now, the fourth one is do what is required versus doing your best. And this is something that, again, I got from my good friend, Alex Hormozy, who's, huge in the business world. And so he applies it to the business world, but I actually think that this is true for our health. And it might sound harsh because you're like, but I'm doing my best and it's not enough. There's many instances when I did my best and it wasn't enough. And it wasn't because I'm not enough or that I'm not worthy. It was actually that I was missing information. And so I had to learn more information and do things that I was slightly uncomfortable with to get me to the next level of my health. The example that I'm going to use here, you guys, is enemas. If you asked me 10 years ago if I would do coffee enemas or water enemas, and I'd be like, no, that's gross. That's why I would never do that. I'm just going to do the supplements and I'll do everything to avoid anything that's quote unquote uncomfortable or for whatever reason, I'm not comfortable with. And when I got into deeper levels of, first of all, I started to get patients who had really high toxicity levels. I started to experience some flare-ups of IBS or parasites. It was uncomfortable to learn that coffee enemas are one of the really good ways to increase glutathione, to help improve that gallbladder bile function, to flush it out, to even help people go through like a gallbladder flush to flush out stones and to get rid of parasites and to really heal the colon. And as much as I didn't want to do it, I knew that it was time to try. Because what's the worst thing that could happen? And in reality, when I opened up my conscious to say, hey, maybe this is something worth trying, it opened up a whole new world for me. I learned how we can help people who have been struggling with really chronic illness, autoimmune conditions, gallbladder, liver, right? I've actually helped people pass an insane amount of stones, which would prevent them from having to have their gallbladder removed in their later stages, right? So patients who are in their 40, 45 and struggling with infertility, then find out that their gallbladder is just full of stones. That's not a coincidence, right? That's not a coincidence. And I just had no idea. So when I say do what is required versus just your best, what I mean by that is we are all always doing our best. And I think that's important to recognize and to give yourself grace on that. But it's not necessarily enough to take you to the next level. And so what we need to do is know that we are doing our best, but also have an open mind that there's a chance that there might be some other information that you're missing and other skill sets that you have to acquire in order to take yourself to the next level. And this is where genuinely, like, I hire practitioners and I hire mentors to help me understand what is it that I'm missing. And even at events, like I just came off an event at ECO, Exponential Clinical Outcomes, the event that's hosted by Cellcore every year. You meet 1,000+ practitioners. Now, obviously, I didn't meet all of them, but you meet a bunch of practitioners who do a bunch of different stuff, and you realize how little you know. It's like, oh my God, there's so much more to know. And it's not that you have to learn all of it at once, but there are certain things that you're going to gravitate towards. And there are certain things that I gravitate towards that I know is going to help either myself or my patients. And whether it's learning more about liver and gallbladder flushes, maybe it's more learning about the psychosomatics of, trauma and how to release it and the mental and emotional components of each disease, then I dive into that next piece so then I can help my patients and then obviously help myself as well. I think those two go hand in hand. And this is where I say, if you feel stuck, this is a time to probably go and find another practitioner and just know that there's so many things you could be doing, but you don't want to be doing all of those things. You need to prioritize. And like I said, a good practitioner is going to help you prioritize that. And so the last thing that I want to take you on this question of how long will it take is it's okay to take a break. It's okay to take a break. This journey is really hard. It can be really frustrating. It's really personal. It will bring out a lot of stuff for you. It's not easy to feel like you're broken every month and that you're unworthy and that maybe my partner is just going to leave me because I can't bring him a child. And I'm never going to have a child and I'm never going to feel fulfilled or happy. It's like, it is not easy to go through that every month. So for those of you who have been struggling with infertility for years, recognize that is what you have been feeling every month. And it is heavy. It is so heavy. So if you feel like you need a break, it's probably because you do. And what that break looks like is going to be different for different people. For some, it's going to be, I'm going to stop taking supplements. I'm going to stop doing any fertility treatments. I'm not going to track my cervical fluid or my LH strip, or I'm going to continue to take supplements and I'm going to continue to eat well and exercise, but maybe we're just going to not care when we have sex, and I'm not going to pee on sticks anymore. And this is where I don't know what that break needs to look like for you, but I think, and I encourage it with some of my patients who have been through a lot in their fertility journey, to just take a break, because sometimes genuinely that's all you need. Sometimes when we're just pushing to heal, genuinely we're going to heal from a place of rest where our parasympathetic nervous system is in charge instead of our sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight or flight. And for some of us, we're so used to being in fight or flight that we don't even know what it's like to be out of that. And so giving yourself permission to take a break might be all you need to let your system heal and let everything, all the work that you've been putting in, to actually fall into place. Because like I said, I see a lot of women put so much pressure on themselves every month, and that pressure is just stress. And we know stress is the enemy of ovulation. It's the enemy for all of our hormones. It screws up our blood sugar, inflammation, sex hormones, all that jazz. So it's okay. It's really hard work to work on yourself all the time. And like I said, it's heavy. So if you feel like you need a break, take the break. I hope you guys found this helpful. And I know it's not what you want to hear. I know that people always want to say, like, tell me it's going to be 6 months. Tell me it's going to be. And there's a reason when I structure my program, I don't structure it to be a certain time, because I don't know. I have people who get pregnant within 3 months or 4 months doing very little, but just enough. And I have people who have been with me for, closer to a year and a half, and we're still very much healing. And there's different layers that expose themselves as we go through the journey. And, if I stack all of the things that we have done, it's like, oh my God, there's so many things that we have worked on and improved. And long term, I know that is going to have a tremendous impact on your overall health. From, hey, you probably are not going to have your gallbladder removed. You probably are not going to get cancer, just like the rest of your family did. You probably are not going to get, diabetes or cardiovascular issues, but you're still not in a place where the body is ready to be pregnant. And that's okay. That's okay. We might just need to take a break, or we might need to do a little bit more testing, and you might need to do more. Just because you've already done a lot does not mean that you're done. Because like I said, a lot of these women that I'm seeing in couples is you're dealing with this generational trauma and disease. And infertility is very much a generational disease, because when you look at when the ovaries develop, it is when our grandmothers are pregnant with our moms. So looking as far back as the health and the well-being of your grandmother, so maternal grandmother, is how far back we need to look. And so if there was issues with whether it was famine, whether it was toxicity like smoking, or a toxic relationship, whatever it is, we have to look that far back. And it's not to discourage you guys, but to let you know that this journey might not be 3 months long. This is something that's been going on for a long time. And I'm sorry that you're the poor soul that got stuck with solving this generational trauma. And it's okay to take the day, or a week to feel sorry for yourself. But at the end of the day, I think there's so many things that we could be doing. So take it a day, take a week, feel sorry for yourself, have the cries, but then it's time to pick yourself back up and just focus on, what is it that I need to work on next? What do I need to do in order to live my best life? And what does that look like? Because I believe that, pregnancy is a natural process. And then when the body is ready, and when mentally and emotionally we've released a lot of our subconscious toxic patterns, thinking, and beliefs, it just allows the body to do what it is designed to do. But it's not easy. So I don't want people to think that it's easy. Again, I hope you guys found this helpful. This is my long answer to how long will this take?